Welcome to Light Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me the one and only Michael Hyson. Michael, it's good to have you on Light Sorcery for the first time.
It's good to be here.
Right.
Definitely,
So, yeah. What's that?
it's definitely been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but it's good to have you on. Always good stuff. And today we're going to be talking about phylacteries. Now, phylacteries, it's kind of a very broad term. It can refer to basically it's items that you have on you that are energetic and for a specific energetic purpose. Would you say that's a fair definition of it?
It's a majority, yes, but there's other applications to it, such as protection, um, guidance, and stuff like that. Energy raising, spiritual communions through faith and religion, and stuff like that. It can go along with it.
Yeah, some people use it for protection, some people use it for, other reasons, but we'll get into all that. So, first of all, the first type of phylactery we're going to get into is what's called the tefillin, which is from Jewish culture, from Hebrew culture. And basically, what they do is they take uh, pieces of the Torah, put them in a box, and they will tie this to your head, about right here, or your left arm, and wrap it around 7 times. And when they're done using the tefillin, they'll go ahead and drop it in a protective pouch, kind of like we put some of our magical tools in protective pouches to keep them from the vibrations we don't want. Um, I'd like to hear your take on the tefillin. Oh, nice.
Yep, and that's a perfectly good perspective right there. A mojo bag or a gris
Mhm.
is a bag that you can put things in, like say protective amulets and talismans.
Mhm.
These type of things, as you said, the tefillin, if you will, which is the Jewish and Hebrew name, is there's two classifications here. One is an amulet which you wear, and when you're not wearing it, then you put it into you either hang it up in a dark area or a protective area, or you put it into a black cloth and put it into an area, or say for example a box or whatever, that is designed specifically for those items. Now the talisman, on the other hand, that's to be hung. It normally has one of two things on it, either a hieroglyph or an alphabet. Both items are used for protection and safety. One is for like a home or a property, and the other one is to be your personal protection.
I'm glad you made that distinction for the audience because it's for some people who are first looking into this, it's easy to get mixed up and get confused. And some people do. And I thought this would be good for light sorcery because, first of all, as far as the tefillin goes, the Jews, they put it on, they're instructed in the Torah to put it on during the daytime,
Yep,
and they also the Jews will put it on during what's called the shakarit, which is the morning prayers. So it's
yep,
kind of like a power up to their prayers. So if they're saying their prayers, which are really incantations, and they're close their eyes, they're focused. When you have these teflon attached to right here and on your arm, the energetic flow is enhanced because I
yep.
imagine they're putting out some kind of a spell with their incantation and their focus. Would you agree with that?
To a point, yes. It does amplify your connection to deities, the spirits, your gods, or whatever entity that you're worshiping or working with.
Right.
If you are, say, for an example, in Hebrewism and Judaism, you're working with Yazad and Yeshua, whereas in Islam, it's Allah. Okay, mainstream Christianity, it is either Yahweh or Jesus of Nazareth, if you will. But when you're working with an amulet, such as an amulet or a talisman, a lot of times it is one of those things that will enhance your prayers. It will enhance your ritualistic worship. And studies have actually shown that when it comes to Hebrewism and Judaism, they've actually, the more devout you are, the more focus and discipline you have with your prayers and your studies and your religious worship while utilizing these items. And it's very fascinating to see. I mean,
Yeah, that go ahead. Even in
even
what?
in my own practices, I've got a whole bunch of these around my ritual space, my temple, my home,
Mm,
and even in my car. So I mean, wherever I'm at, I can sit there and utilize the whispers, the mantras, the incantations, and just say, "Hey, come on down. I'd like to commune with you. Come commune with me. Accept my offering, my sacrifice, whatever." And I can sit there and just talk to them like you and I are doing.
mhm.
And it's really about that connection spiritually when you're in a religion or a religious background, like say paganism,
Mhm.
Wicca, say Satanism, Voodoo. The Caribbean traditions such as Santeria,
Right.
Pedo Mayampi, and it really intensifies your 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 religious connections.
I agree. They are power ups as far as I see them. Now, I just wanted to notify to the audience that they can be used for offensive and defensive purposes, but for
Yep.
the purpose of light sorcery, we're focusing on using these for positive reasons and for positive energy. So, like, take for instance, if you were to use the Torah or the Bible, maybe you could put certain verses, like if you're going to put it over your head, maybe put certain verses from the Torah that focus on
Psalms,
divination and receiving messages, that type of thing. What's that? Awakening.
Psalms 24.
Yeah,
When
or
you do the
Psalms. Go ahead.
thing, that's a key one that Judaism uses. If you're into Hebrewism, then they would use, like, say, one of the let's go with, say, for an example, Psalms 152. Okay, where it literally breaks down the religious worship between the Almighty and the practitioner themselves.
Okay. What was that Psalm that you mentioned before 152? Because I kind of didn't hear that. Which one is it?
24.
Psalm 24. See, and the thing is that you can get creative. I mean, you can go through the Psalms yourself, which I will say the Psalms are very powerful. Um, they do have, you can tell that they have certain strong energy attached to them. But you can, if you don't want to use the Bible, you can pretty much use anything you want. You can make up an incantation, you can take something from a grimoire and put it in
It's
there.
exactly it's based off your religion. So I mean, if you're a Wiccan, you'll probably use the Wiccan Radi. You'll probably do some kind of prayer type thing to like a raven, like an animal totem or whatever, which we'll get into that in a little while.
Mhm.
Um, but you'll get into the prayers and stuff like that. You'll be working with the prayers to like the fire or to a specific deity. Like
Mhm.
say, let's go with Aphrodite if you're into the love and connection that in that way. Maybe you're looking for the wild hunt, so you'd go with Artemis, the huntress.
Mhm.
Find that mate. You could use Zeus for divine or divinity aspects. You know, um, you can use any number of deities worldwide, depending on
Mhm.
your religion.
Yeah, and what's neat about this is you can get creative with it. You don't necessarily have to follow the system that the Hebrews laid out. You can get creative with it and, use whatever you want, however, whatever methods that you want. I do like the fact that you mentioned about being very devout and having it being more powerful, because I believe that if you're close to a certain god or a certain deity, that you start to develop certain supernatural abilities associated with that energetic current. So like take for instance, back in the day, I was very close to Yahweh, and the Bible is very specific about certain spiritual gifts that he can give, and I started to develop those spiritual gifts. I had the gift of bibliomancy and prophecy, and I had certain gifts. Now, of course, as I, quit going to church and kind of found other paths, I lost that ability. Now, that's not to say that I can't gain that ability by getting close to another deity or being devout to another practice. But yeah, it's that is very true. And the more devout you are, I would say the stronger your spell or your incantation is.
Yeah.
So
And one of the things that I'd like to say is there's been instances throughout history, and it's been documented and well documented, that certain religions like to torture. If you have an amulet or a talisman in this way, a tefillin, that connects you to your alpha state of mind. So you'd be
mhm.
constantly praying. And as a devout, you'd be able to hold out a lot longer than somebody that's just like a neophyte or an amateur. And it's really documented out there that those who are very, very devout can go through hell and return unscathed. I mean,
Yeah.
say for example, look at let's go with Daniel and his friends in the Inferno. Okay, look at Daniel being in the cavern with the hungry lions. Prime example of what an
hmm
amulet, Teflon can do, and
Yeah.
being you
And the
have those
Bible is very specific as to how devout Daniel was, as
exactly,
opposed to everybody else.
yeah. And even if you get into, say, for example, herbalism, which you can, depending if you're making your own Teflon, and if you have that know-how, or if you have, like, say, a locket that you've turned into an amulet or a talisman, you can actually add in herbalism, for an example. Say, for an example, henbane, poppy, and hemlock. Combine those three, and you've got a hallucinogenic type mixture that will help enhance your pineal gland. It'll help you get into having visions and connect to whatever deity that you're worshiping and praying to.
Now, I have a question here about, the Jews saying specifically right here on your head and then on your left arm. Now, if you wanted to get creative, let's say with another deity and use those same areas, I mean, like, why would you say that why would you assume that the Hebrews would focus on those specific areas? I mean, I can have an idea right here, for
Yeah, the third eye.
third eye and focusing like that
Yeah,
here.
psychic
The
ability.
arms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
So,
arm. If you go into the Bible for an example, there's a section in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John that states that at least if I remember correctly, it's in those passages where it says that if your eye causes you to sin, to pluck it out. Right.
right.
So in that case, you look at your arm. The left arm is symbolized as strength in the light aspects because of the fact, the powerhouse, because it's connected to the heart. When your
Mm,
cardiovascular system is strong, you're gonna feel it, right? But if it's
mhm,
weak, what's the first thing that's affected? Your left arm, especially
right.
through a cardiac event like, say, heart attack.
hmm
Okay, but in this case, you're dealing with the right arm, which is the right hand of God. Look at Jesus. Okay, for an example, he was considered to be the son of God. So therefore, you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost in a Trinity and triangle effect, right?
mm
So you're looking at what the Hebrews did and the Jewish customs did. Each one of these symbolizes that triangle, and it's a
That makes a lot
powerhouse.
of sense. That makes a lot
Especially,
of sense when you put it. Go ahead.
you'll see where this comes in when we start talking about totems and relics.
Well, speaking of totems, let's jump right into totems because
All
this
right,
ties in with phylacteries.
exactly.
Totems,
Look at the Jewish
totems.
golem.
Go ahead.
Look at the Jewish golem, for example. It's a protected.
Mhm.
This type of being is made out of clay, out of clothes, out of straw. You can even make it so lifelike that you can bring it to life with just a single word, the word of the master, if you will. And like the voodoo zont in a zombie, there's only one person that can control that, and it's basically done on a scroll. It could be inside the mouth, it could be, inside the body. The
Mhm.
golem, it is one of those type of beings that you can write the name across the forehead. You can have the scroll, like say for an example, you look at the Chinese, they have those scrolls that they roll up in those cool little casings.
Yeah.
Always been fascinated with those, but it's it's one of those things that it's rolled up in it, so that when you place it in the golem's mouth, it's basically them swallowing it, and they are forever tied to you. So they have a mind and a consciousness of their own, so that they can go out, protect you by any means. You send them out to do a job. Okay, let's say collect. Let's go with the Zohar. Okay, the collection of Zohar books. So you know where it is. You send them. The golem has that opportunity, that mind state to go out and go. Okay, this is how I'm going to go in. I'm going to ask nicely, or I'm just going to go in and start, knocking people out just to get to it and bring it back to my owner. But it's that thought form of how it's the written word is tied in with the golem. The golem is also a protected relic in Jewish custom, not just Hebrewism. It's amazing to see. And a
Yeah,
lot
and
of schools are like this.
yeah, and there's a lot of lore on golems when when you look into different people's cultures and different writings and stuff like that. A lot of important people or people who are noteworthy and respected speak of these golems coming alive. And I wouldn't doubt it at all. When you're on the path of a magician like we are, you see so many supernatural things that not too much surprises you.
Indeed.
Now, I mean, as far as why totems work, I would say a lot of it has to do with like attracts like, as above, so below. What's in the astral realm also is mirrored down on the physical plane. And if you have, like there's correspondences, the same thing that you would do with spell work. These
Yeah.
things have a connection to certain ideas, and sometimes they have a connection to just about anything you want them to have a connection to, and then you can just add on to that. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
It is, but it's a lot more when you get into
Mhm.
totems. For an example, totems are things that you can charge energy wise. Look at the statues of, say, let's go with Artemis, or the statue of Bastet, Hathor, for an example. These types of statues are considered to be dark totems or light totems, depending on what religion you're in. For an example, if we're talking JCI, let's go with the Catholics. You have the scepter. Okay, that's considered a totem. It's also a relic, but it's something that's very powerful, and they keep it on an altar. Okay, just like a statue. So when you are doing ritual, you're constantly in there on a daily basis charging it. Instead of putting the energies through you, you're putting it through this totem, and
That
it's
kind
the house.
that kind of reminds me of in Catholicism when they have the statues of the saints and they're
Yeah.
constantly praying to them and putting energy into that. I mean, you walk into a Catholic church and there's a statue of the Virgin Mary, and
Mhm.
people are constantly praying to it and
Santa Morte.
focusing on it and putting energy into it. So that's an example right there.
Yep, Santa Morte. You look
Yeah.
at the worshippers of Santa Morte, Holy Death. You know, they literally crawl on their knees to the statue and pray, depending on the coloring of the robes, depends on what they're praying for. Obviously, the black is for death and all that stuff, but the red is for emotion, passion, and stuff like that. Love. The white is for healing, divine information, if you will, and so forth.
Same thing with candle color correspondences. You can just look at
Exactly.
it that way.
Even candles are the same way.
Hmm.
So I mean,
Yeah.
totems are one of those things that you can charge. You can do energy manipulation. You can transfer energy between you, the totem, and your spell work. And it's basically the key component of what a totem is a house for both spirits and energy.
Yeah. And some people like to talk to them before they meditate and just say, hey,
Exactly.
guide me if they have a specific purpose and going into the meditation for a specific intent, then they can guide you.
Exactly.
So, I mean, now let's move into relics because it ties in along with totems and they tend to be somewhat closely related. Um, Good
Yep.
luck charms, items synonymous with good luck or healing. Um, the concept kind of reminds me of, and I know this would not be considered a relic, but if it was by itself, in the Bible, where you have the story of that woman who says, "I can be healed if I only touch his garment. If I only touch it, you know what I mean." And she touched it,
Yep.
and she had faith and believed, and she was healed. That's kind of the
Exactly.
same concept with with relics. Would you agree with that?
It is. Let me put it to you this way. It does not matter if it is a ritual robe, a garment, for an
Yeah.
example, it's considered a relic. If you look at the Knights of Templar, the one of the biggest things that they went for relic wise was the cup of life. Okay, the chalice. They also went and got a piece of the cross, or what was considered to be the cross that had the blood of Christ on it.
Hmm.
Okay. Other things were protective amulets, protective items such as rings. You know,
Yeah.
the ring is a powerful relic.
Hmm.
Okay. It links you to your craft. It links you to the current that you worship and that you work with on a day to day, path, if you will, a path working or ritual wise, meditation, you name it, communion. It connects you to that current, not just to the divinity that you work with as an entities. For an example, rings, totems.
Crystals. Some people
It,
there are a lot of people just carry crystals around. They have faith in that crystal that it's going to bring that type of energetic current into their life. They have it in their pocket. So many people do that.
yep, you can alter coins. You can have necklaces.
Hmm.
Say for example, a lot of people have the necklace that has a coin for the traveler. You know the one I'm talking about, Saint
Right.
Peter.
Hmm.
Okay, but then you've also got the ones that are for the Archangel Michael. You've got the cross. Okay, same exact thing. And when you're dealing with white light aspects, these relics are very powerful, especially in a faith, because that faith, and especially if you're a devout in that particular religion, nothing you do or say is going to prevent that person from completing that objective.
True.
If your
There.
is and let's say for an example, your objective is to get to the other side of a legion of army. Let's say an army of zombies, just out of an example,
Mhm.
and you believe so heartily in that relic that it's going to protect you, that it's going to connect you through your faith to whatever spirit, deity, or entity that you worship, and that being is going to watch out for you. You're not going to be harmed, no matter
Mhm.
how many times you're bitten, how many times you're scratched, how many times you're beaten down.
That's where the
You're not.
saying goes, mind over matter.
Exactly. I
It's a
mean,
real
look at
thing.
one of the greatest images that we see if you read the Bible is, again, we're going to go back into Daniel. They
Mhm.
were put in an inferno. That fire should have turned them to ash. But yet 3 went in, and when they opened those doors, there were 4. That's faith. That
The
is
Son
being
of Man,
divine.
yeah. The Son of Man was there watching them.
Yeah.
So
And that's faith.
yeah, you know,
When
and it's some people may look at these Bible stories and some of these stories from, you know, different cultures and different lore and say, oh, that's just fairy tale stuff. That
yeah,
stuff doesn't happen, or if it did happen, it doesn't happen today. Well, that's very wrong. I think that the media and the establishment tries to hide the fact that that stuff like that still happens. I mean, that's why they
yeah,
don't report about it on the news. You just hear about mundane stuff or, but I mean, the fact is, if you've been around the block and you're a person who goes out and about, you come across stuff that you see, or you know, people that you trust, stories they tell you of, yeah, I was in danger and suddenly I had superhuman strength, or that bullet should have hit me,
the
but
mother car to
it didn't. What's that?
the mother moving the car to save the baby.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
One of
there's been
yeah. I mean, there's another depiction from the Book of Tobit. Asmodeus, the king Asmodee, you know, wanting to be with one woman, and he's killing off all the brothers. The last brother goes to Raphael and says, "Hey, I don't want to die, but I want to be with this woman. What can I do to prevent this?" What does the angel do? Tells him to go out and get a specific gallbladder from a specific fish and nail it to the door. That's a relic, and
yeah,
it wards the home from Asmodeus.
yeah. And people,
That's from a demonologist perspective.
and again, people might look at that and say, well, that just sounds silly. How can that work? But again, they don't teach you in school how energy works. Energy
Exactly.
flows according to correspondences, according to faith and intent. These are
Yep.
things that can transform your life and make things fall in your favor. And it's not just about going to a 9 to 5 job and working hard and saving your money and investing your money wisely. It's much more than that. These supernatural principles that us as magicians follow is what they should teach in school, but they don't. And that's the energy flows according to them.
Yep.
So you would, you know, for those who have studied mysticism and magic, only they would have an understanding of why it works. But you know, again, if you don't understand, just have faith and it'll work, I
Yep.
guess.
One of the biggest things that I tell my clients is when I make a phylactery for you, be it a relic in this case, okay? Let's say I make you a relic and you're having a issue with, say, let's say a manager or somebody of equal rank and title at work. Perhaps it's something to do with somebody harassing you or whatever, and I create a phylactery, a relic for
Mhm.
protection. I charge it, I create it, I name it, and I charge it for you, and I wrap it in black cloth or white cloth, depending on your religion. And I always do it in black cloth, and I make sure that it's wrapped up with ribbon so that it remains sealed until it gets to you. Now, I will give you instructions that every, say, 2 to 3 months, put it into a dark area and let it charge. You can use it as a paperweight. You can use it as, hang it on the wall, whatever you need. But it's there to protect you. Okay, so you
Mhm.
want it nearby in your workplace. So I've had customers come back and go, "Hey, it's no longer working. What do I do? Do I need to pay for a new one?" No. What did I tell you when I sent it to you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to charge it back up. So this, you know, I'm not being mean. I'm just saying, put it in a dark area, let it charge, and then, overnight, and then just put it back out. Plain and simple.
You know, it makes me wonder why sometimes, like, if you look at it from religious perspective, like let's say you have an aunt that wants to give their nephew or their niece a relic or something to for protection. They can take, like, let's say a rosary, and just
Yeah.
they handle it. They hold it in their hand. They have an intent. They pray over it. They pray to God over it. You know what I mean? Please have this protect so and so, and they're a devout person. Well, that energy is really in that. So then when they go ahead and give it to them, so where this, will always protect you and be, they will be protected when they put that on. They say, okay, all right, I have faith that you, because it's infused with love. It's infused with, because that family member loves that other family member, and so it's infused with love, and by the power of love, that person, when they receive it, will be protected.
It's basically alchemy. Look at it from a
Yeah.
dark. Let's look at it from an alchemical perspective. When you are creating a talisman, you're basically taking it from, say, either a necklace, you're anointing it with, like, say, holy water or blood, for an example. You're utilizing, say, let's go with dragon's blood, myrrh, and frankincense. You're charging it with solar energy, like, say, the sun, or your the moon. So you'd be working with the feminine energy in that case,
Mhm.
whereas the sun is the male. Depending on its purpose, you really want to charge it with a specific purpose. So that's constantly got to be in your forefront of your mind when you're doing this. So you want to bring all the elements together when you're creating it. It could be as simple as a sigil. It could be clay. And if you're going clay wise, what I normally do is I go to Walmart and I go into the arts and crafts section and I get what is called the oven baked clay. It's a little bit hard to start out with, but like Play-Doh, it gets soft as you play with it. So it's one of those things where you can shape it into whatever thing you want. You can make it into an ashtray. You can make it into a vase, depending on the amount that you have. You can draw all kinds of seals on it. You can charge those seals for specific things. And depending on, like I said, the topic is what you want to keep in your forefront of your mind when you're doing this. So when you're charging it, you really want to put all as much energy into it as possible. And to think of it much like a totem is also a very good thing, because that is a totem that you're channeling that energy into for that customer, that client. Even if it is for yourself, you want that to be for
Mhm.
that protection, but also you want it to be able to be used for whatever you need it to be used for. So let's say, for an example, you want it for protection, but you want to add that bonus of, say, bringing monetary gain to you, maybe higher
Mhm.
position, or maybe a little bit more money. So you'd be adding things like basil, parsley. Let's go with rosemary, any star or whatever, type herbs to rub into it and to mix into it. You can add honey to it to make that gleam. You want to be able to bake it so that it comes out nice and shiny. You can even get that gloss, for an example, from automotive departments. The paint
Mhm.
has a sparkle to it. You can mix different things into it to make it, different colors. But it works, and it's something that, like the Teflon, is going to be a base foundation for whatever space you're going to be in and
Mhm.
utilize.
Yeah. Agreed. And I mean, if you wanted to get more specific, you can even, go as far as to doing it during certain hours or under certain planetary alignments. I mean, you can get as deep with it as you can, but the main point, main purpose is, regardless of how deep you get into it, it will work.
Exactly, and this is just 1% of what you can actually do
Mhm.
with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you still
Agreed.
got 99% to go.
Yeah, it never ends the more you research. I mean, like the saying goes, the more you know you don't know, I guess.
I
So,
I always I
um,
always tell people, think of your gnosis, your apotheosis, like an onion. And I use the onion analogy because once you get past you master the first layer, you can you can tear it away, and you got a whole nother layer to go. And you
Mhm.
can master that layer, peel it away. You got
Yeah.
another underneath. So the onion analogy really, really fits in this case because when you're thinking about Tephilims, you're thinking about the magic, your faith, your religion in these areas. There is so much that you can do that defies logic to a normal person.
Yeah. Agreed. Now let's jump over to amulets. And so amulets are usually used to give protection against evil, danger, or disease, or it could be an ornament or a small piece of jewelry. Can be used for protection or good fortune.
Yep.
But
Um,
it does get much more deeper than that, right?
yep. You can go into things like the black pellet, for an example.
Mm,
In the black pellet, it shows a number of different amulets you can use for any number of topics, especially for protection. If you
mm,
go into the 6 and 7 books of Moses, I believe it's book 7 that deals with things like Shemhem Pharesh, Mephistopheles, and so forth. You know, the 7 princes that are based off sorcery and protection and stuff like that, and guardianship
mm.
through sorcery.
Right.
Now, even if you get into Middle Eastern traditions, an amulet was always used for protection, especially out in the wilderness, because it was thought that you had these like vampiric spirits that will try to suck the life from you out there. It would be like going to, say, for an example, a reaver, you know,
Mm,
would attack you, a vampiric or a ghoul, if you will. They were considered to be vile entities that would try to attack you and suck the life out of you, suck the marrow, the blood, the flesh, and eat the flesh and such. So
yeah.
these amulets were a strict belief, especially in Judaism and Hebrewism, which are basically the prime sources out there these days, unless you could figure out the other names to other countries and other languages.
Mm,
Which, believe me, there's quite a few out there. Um, these things can be worn as a warding. So if it's say for an example, if you have something that you made that has an alphabet on it, a specific language, like say a name of a powerful spirit, and these particular things can ward off lesser spirits. Okay, if you have a glyph, it's basically one of those, like a hieroglyph. Then this particular hieroglyph is like a reflector, if you will. You know how you're driving down the road and you see somebody walking with a vest on, and you see that reflective glare. Think of it as
mm,
blinding the hostile entities in that case. Now, as a warlock and a practicing necromancer, the amulet basically is something that will ward off attacks from other practitioners, and not just that, but other people that want to see you get knocked down. If you work in the, like, say, for example, the corporation world, as you know, I used to work for Dunkin', which is a fast food restaurant. It's basically a chain
right.
of restaurants. And one of the things that you deal with is the pressure. But the other thing is you're dealing with constant attacks from coworkers, not just the higher ups. You're trapped between upper management and your current management, and then you got those trying to stab you in the back and screw you over. So you have to learn who your friends are and who you can trust and who you can't. Now, a lot of times you're not going to see it coming, so that's where an
Mm.
amulet comes into play. An amulet
Yeah.
will protect you from a lot of that.
And some it's good to have an amulet because sometimes it's just as simple as someone casting the evil eye on you. And sometimes people cast the evil eye on you and they don't even know that they're doing it. It could just be them that they're jealous. And when they look at you with hatred and jealousy, they can actually cast energy onto you without even knowing it. Some people don't
Well,
know that.
Well, that's the other thing, is that verbalism can be a curse. It's not
Yeah,
just casting a
words.
lie. You can
Or
also
there you
sit
go.
there.
There's another example.
I can sit there and say, I hate your guts and I wish you were dead. Right there, I just cursed you.
Right.
Okay.
If
As
it
an example,
has a strong enough intent and focus, yeah, that can. There you go.
it's definitely a curse. So exactly. So an amulet would actually reflect that. It would actually prevent it from getting to you.
Hmm.
One of the reasons I wear rings, and I always have one under here, and I also have my griscris bag in my pocket at all times. It's got an altar coin. It's got various different stones in it, things that will heal, things that will calm you, things that will cleanse you, and keep you good and healthy, not
Hmm.
just safe.
Well, one thing I also wanted to mention is the fact that some objects can just have spirits in them. You
Yeah.
can. Some
Look,
people
yeah.
can, if you wanted to, you can just go ahead.
Rubies were renowned in the Middle East for catching and storing gin.
Yeah, you can put gin in them. You can also take Uh, in some cases, you can take someone's soul, put them in
Yep.
certain crystals and certain objects. Some people have put demons inside certain items. I mean, look at Solomon and the 72 jinn, and you have the brass vessel, that type of story.
The
And
dib-
there's so many examples of that. What's that?
the Dibbit box. I've
Yeah, there
created
you go.
two
There's
in my 35 years. I've had to create two Dibbit boxes in 35 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, like when you see movies like when you see a movie, and this is going to sound crazy to some people that are watching, but when you see certain movies like, let's say, Child's Play, Chucky, that can actually really happen. You notice that the guy, when he says, "I need to find something to transfer to," and he grabs it, and
Annabelle.
he's got the focus and intent. He's saying the incantation, and there's a change in the atmosphere, and you can actually transfer souls into items. That's a real thing.
Lorraine and Ed Warren had a doll called Annabelle.
Yeah, there's another example.
Yep. It's called Possession.
Now, yeah, let me tell you. I mean, I've visited Zach Bagan's haunted museum. I've visited that before, and there are certain items in there, like certain dolls. I walked up to some of these dolls, and I could feel the spirit looking back at me, with an intense glare.
Yep.
You can feel it, just like as if you were physically in front of me, looking at me like that. I mean, it's a real thing.
And the thing is with those, you have to have the effigy, you have to have the connection to the individual if you're going to take the soul and plant it in there or store a spirit into it.
Mm.
But then you also have to have that link, not just the incantation.
Yeah,
And a lot of people
yeah.
don't realize that. So, I mean, when you get into possession, such as possession of a doll, you don't just cleanse it. You've also got to name it. You got to charge it, and then you got to transfer the essence into that doll. And
Right.
that that's unfortunately comes down to a curse. It's basically the soul siphoning process.
And speaking of this particular topic that we're on right now and how it kind of went to curses, I just want to go ahead and tell people that Michael Hyson and I do plan on sometime doing a Phylacteries video for Dark Sorcery, because right now we're trying to teach you and discuss methods of positive energy from this, but we can also discuss the negative aspects of it, and that's where the Dark Sorcery video comes in the future. And we'll keep you posted on that. So
Yeah, and everything I've discussed so far is defensive magic only.
yeah, so but yeah, agreed. And let's go ahead and talk about talismans. And talismans, I mean, there's different examples of talismans. Some people use what's called the rabbit's foot. So people
Yep.
like to have the rabbit's foot, even pentacles, again, protective sigils, runes, Nordic type of imagery. Um, I'd
In
like
the
to go
old
ahead and go ahead.
in the old days, they used apples, because if you cut an apple in half, you'll notice that the center of it is a pentagram.
A pentagram, right?
Now, if you add something like, say, bay leaf or basil, and you put it on the cardinal directions, you have one hell of a protective barrier.
Agreed.
And if you have amulets, for an example, the ribbon or the string, made into a necklace perspective of it, you can hang them around your property, and it's basically a warding.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, like we discussed earlier, crosses or crucifixes, religious
Yep.
symbols, they can be used for the same thing. Not only verses from the Bible, but verses from the Quran.
Yep.
People can use
And
that. Relics. Go ahead.
the thing is that if you're making it out of clay, you can burn these things, make them, like, say, the pages of, say, for example, the Bible, or the passage that you want, you can burn it, put the ashes into the clay, bake it, and then paint it, put draw the symbols that you want on it. Like, say, let's go with the keys of Solomon, and go into, say, let's go with Mars,
Okay.
Pentacle number 3, for an example, just out of an example. This will protect you from a lot of different things of negative energies. If you go into, say, let's go with Jupiter, it's a Pentacle 2. It's another
Yeah.
type of warding,
Yeah.
but it can also be considered as a trap as well. It's considered a soul trap or a spirit trap.
Yeah. You have, depending on the planet that you're referring to, you got to keep in mind all the correspondences pertaining to it, because it's carrying a combination of those energies. And if your
Yep.
situation is unique, the wrong energies can be released without you knowing it. So you have to
Right.
really do your
So
homework.
I would recommend. I believe his name is Joseph Peterson's work on Solomon's work. He's actually You've got 3 books that he's put out. The first one is the Grimorium Vernum. You don't have to get into that one, but I would recommend the Secrets of Solomon, and I believe it's called Black Magic, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
The third one, which is nothing but all the seals, planets, and it'll tell you what it's about, what each pentacle is, and how it can be used. And all you have to do is draw it. If you get into the Keys of Solomon, there's another book that has the same exact depictions in a small little proverb, if you will,
Mhm.
of what that pentacle does and what it's about and what it can do for you. So that's 2 sources that you can actually get into. Well, 3 sources really. Even if you want to get into Enochian magic, the complete system of Enochian actually has the main seal that will give you power for protection purposes, but also the ability to call upon the entities that will protect you, like your legionnaires, like your guardians, your the warriors, if you will, like, say, the archangels, out of an example, because that's what Enochian does. It deals with
Mhm.
the angelic beings, the celestial home bodies.
Mhm.
So that's just some sources for you to check out.
Yeah. And also, it's been known that certain people's birthstones as well can be
Yep,
used for protection purposes. I mean, obviously, not only that, but just luck in general. Because I mean, let's face it, your energy is corresponding with that stone based on,
exactly.
yeah.
And like
So
I said,
automatically, there you go.
exactly. And like I said at the beginning, when you get into talismans, you're going to be seeing them in 2 different aspects. One is with an alphabet, perhaps like the witch's alphabet, or say the Theban or the celestial or an Anglo-Saxon. Let's go with the Hellgate system for an example. You may even find it in what is it, runic, if you will. Either way, that language is very powerful. On the other hand, you have what is called hieroglyphs. These are depictions that have symbols and seals, like the clavicle of Solomon, prime example. These things have different abilities as soul traps, protection. They deal with reversals and everything too. So they will protect you.
Yeah. Well, that's just some examples we wanted to give you of there we can get some positive energy and some protection and some luck into your life. And yeah, it's been a very, very good conversation, Michael. And I thank you for coming on. It's nice to have you on Light Sorcery, and looking forward to future videos having you on. And yeah, and anyone who's watching, you can check out all his social media links below in the video description. And we had mentioned Dark Sorcery, which is our other channel, which focuses on dark magic and magical defense. So if you want to check that out, there's the link below. Also, you can check that out and subscribe.
I do have a Facebook account. I've currently got it deactivated because I'm kind of getting offline for a while. I do have a TikTok and an Odyssey account, and I'm more on YouTube these days than anything, that and TikTok. But for the most part, it's going to be a little while before I get back on Facebook. So
Okay.
just keep a lookout for my profile when it pops up.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I'll have all those links below in the video description. Michael Hyson, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Anytime.
And everyone who's watching, make sure you like and subscribe to Light Sorcery.